process. Okay. Very good evening to everyone. Welcome to the open house on the dual LLM degree through Global Immersion Fellowship for Talent and Education Development gifted program, jointly organized by Jindal Global Law School, OP Jindal Global University, and Texas A&M University School of Law, Texas A&M University. Myself, Srijit SG, I'm Professor of Law and Vice Dean, Jindal Global Law School, OP Jindal Global University. We have today with us 5 speakers who will speak about the gifted program and later on answer your questions. We have with us Professor C. Rajkumar, Vice Chancellor, OP Jindal Global University and Dean, Jindal Global Law School. Dean Robert Ade, Dean of Texas A&M University School of Law. Professor Idibia Raghavan, Professor of Law, Texas A&M University. Assistant Dean David Day, Assistant Dean for Graduate Studies, Texas A&M University. And Mr. Ananya Gupta, Advocate, Karnataka High Court. I welcome all the speakers and the participants who are connected to us through the webinar portal and also through the YouTube. We'll have 30 minutes of conversation with the panelists, and after which we'll open the session for questions and answers by the panelists. Let's begin. I start with Professor C. Rajkumar. Professor Rajkumar, the gifted program, otherwise known as the Global Immersion Fellowship for Talent and Educational Development, is an extraordinary imagination in international collaborations between higher educational institutions. I call it extraordinary as it is predicated on the very concept of global as a consciousness, global as a mindset. What has prompted you to envisage a program like this? What is the scope of the gifted program in the present times, especially when a pandemic is threatening to foil all existing global possibilities?
Thank you very much, Srijit, and it's so wonderful to see our good friends from Texas A&M, Bob and Srividya, as well as Professor David William. In some ways, the idea of the gifted program is part of the vision of our university and indeed our partnering institution, in this case, the Texas A&M University School of Law, with a view to provide a global legal education opportunity. 11 years ago, when Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University was conceived, we were conscious of providing a transformative educational opportunity for young lawyers, law aspirants who want to get the best of both the academic worlds, India and the world at large. In some ways, these 11 years has indeed transformed the landscape of legal education, in which transnational legal education, which includes components of global curriculum, global course structure, global program, global faculty, global research agenda, all of which promoting global interaction, has informed and impacted the global university agenda. This program has essentially 3 important components. First of all, the idea of a dual degree program. The dual degree program is based upon both a philosophical underpinning, but also a practical exposure to 2 legal systems, 2 jurisdictions, 2 institutional experiences. Students who pursue the dual degree programs end up having opportunity to study in 2 separate independent law schools in 2 different countries, and ultimately are able to receive 2 degrees. And that dual degree context becomes one of the most important aspects of how student mobility has been promoted around the world. And we have been pretty pioneers in it. And we have done that before with in our LLB JD and other imaginations. The second important feature of this program is to recognize the current global pandemic and the global crisis that we are all facing together. Inevitably, those students who might have aspired to study abroad, particularly in Texas A&M University School of Law or good law schools in the United States, or for a variety of reasons, are simply not able to leave immediately. Those who are planning to pursue their studies in the fall term in the United States for a variety of reasons, including health-related reasons, issues related to visa and possible future opportunities, all those things have been affected and even adversely impacted at this point of time. So the vision was, how do we create an opportunity for these students from India? Some of them could be Jindal graduates, but some of them may not be Jindal graduates. The idea of providing international mobility and international engagement, even at a time when one of the core characteristic of internationalization, which is student mobility, has been significantly undermined. And the third aspect of it is that if we were to pursue this opportunity in a slightly delayed manner, in the sense that if they are in a position to travel as early as next year or so, then the question is, how do you make the best use of this time and to be enrolled in a full-fledged program in India, which will then help them acquire the necessary credits and then seamlessly help them to be enrolled into another LLM program at Texas A&M University School of Law, and progressively translating that into award of credits in both countries, both jurisdictions and both law schools, culminating in the award of 2 Masters of Law degrees from 2 schools. That makes this program absolutely unique and significantly transformative, and has the impact for students to be able to do a variety of courses in 2 different jurisdictions. I also think that one of the things about the gifted program is that it recognizes the current challenge, but it also provides an opportunity for the future. One of the things that has happened in the global world of jobs and opportunities that are there is that this year is also a tough year. So in some ways, the beauty of this program is that it provides a much needed cushion and a delayed entry into the workforce for a lot of young people who might have completed their law degree but are looking to seek a job opportunity but may not be able to get it. It gives an opportunity for them to upgrade their knowledge, improve their skills, learn new courses, and have some specialization, which will ultimately inform their thinking about pursuing a future job opportunity in the United States or India or anywhere in the world. Of course, there are different immigration rules and regulations that will inform their ability to work in different jurisdictions. Be that as it may, the vision was to equip an Indian student with 2 Masters of Law degrees at a given time in 2 different global law schools in 2 different jurisdictions. That is the vision on the basis of which Texas A&M University School of Law and Jindal Global Law School have come together to launch this program.
Thank you, Professor Rajkumar. That's actually a great effort to keep the global ambition and the potential of the global alive. Before I move to Dean Robert Ede, I would like the participants to type the questions in the chat box. Once the discussions are over, there will be an opportunity to raise your questions and it will be answered. So Dean Ede, what is the motivation of Texas A&M University School of Law to become part of the gifted program? How effectively the vision and mission of Texas A&M University School of Law streamlined with the ambition of the global ambition of the gifted program?
Well, let me begin by thanking Chancellor Kumar as well as the entire Jindal Global Law School community for their support of this program and for really the innovation they have brought to legal education globally over the last decade. It really is an incredibly impressive institution. And I can say as a university, as a law school, we are incredibly proud to be collaborating with Jindal Global. So I think to your question, as you said it, I thought there are really 2 elements. One is why is Texas A&M Law School engaged and interested? And the other is what's the fit of Texas A&M with this program? So first, I'll mostly talk about the why piece, and then say a little bit about the fit piece. So in terms of the why, it starts again with a similar commitment to global engagement. Our faculty is probably the most, if not one of the most, if not the most global law school faculty in the United States among law schools. If you look at the number of our faculty who not just engage or study overseas legal systems, but who are actually whose background is in those systems. Multiple faculty from India, faculty from Spain, from Germany, from Italy, from Israel, what am I missing? From Hong Kong, and the list goes on and on, Mexico. So an incredibly international and global faculty means that our law school's character is very much in the spirit of Jindal Global Law School. So that's one reason I think why. I would say in particular, I mentioned 2 faculty, including Professor Raghavan, most importantly, who's with us, but two faculty who hail from India and who really sort of continue to have strong connections, networks, are plugged into the Indian legal community, as well as, frankly, business community. For that reason, we have a particular interest in collaborating and building opportunities in India. I would add to that I myself have been coming to India now for 40 years. My grandparents, when I was a child, lived in Pune. And so we would regularly visit India as a child. And it's been amazing to me to watch the incredible transformation and globalization of the country. So first, our general global orientation, then our India connection, India broad, our interest in India. And then I would say Jindal Global in particular, I have known since its founding. I've had the pleasure of engaging with Chancellor Kumar numerous times over the years. And as I began, there is no law school perhaps in the world, and surely I think in India, that is more serious about what does it mean to educate lawyers for legal practice in the 21st century. That's exactly what we aspire to do. That's exactly what I think Jindal Global is doing. And so I think that connection adds to it. The last couple of points I would say in terms of the why, we are deeply focused at the law school in terms of on recruiting excellent students. So there are lots of law schools that in the US, their aspiration is to bring in as many students as possible, or to, whatever, all sorts of different goals. That's not our goal. Our goal is to figure out who are excellent students and to bring them here and to provide them an excellent education. That, from our vantage, is the way that our institution will advance and go forward. So from my vantage, the opportunity to collaborate with an excellent institution, #1 private law school in India, one of the best law schools in the world by all the global ratings, to find those students and to bring them and provide them that education is an incredible opportunity. The last thing I'll say on the why is we are deeply focused on innovation at A&M Law School. That's our mantra. We are constantly asking questions about how can we innovate? How can we do things differently, creatively? That is particularly true at times of challenge. As Chancellor Kumar pointed out, around the coronavirus pandemic, so on and so forth, figuring out how do we provide a product that is as good, if not better? And if you think about this opportunity, the opportunity to get two degrees really is in some sense an improvement on what existed 6 months ago. The opportunity to do so at incredibly reasonable cost compared to what it cost to do so just 6 months ago really represents a commitment to innovation and to creativity. And the last thing I'd say on the fit piece, your second question, Sujit, the A&M is now the largest university in the United States, the Texas A&M. So our capacity to engage and to collaborate and partner and be impactful in terms of the education we provide is incredibly high as a university. Texas A&M Law School, meanwhile, is by all counts the fastest rising law school in the United States. We have gone up more than 100 points in the rankings over the last 5-6 years. We have risen in student quality more than any law school in the country. We have risen in terms of reputation among judges and lawyers more than any other country. So all around, we are a law school that is an opportunity law school, I guess I would say. And in that sense, a place that I think for those who are participating, for you students, potentially is a great fit as a collaborator for this program.
Thank you, Dean Ede, for that response. I'll now move to Professor Idibia Raghavan, who's a professor of law in Texas A&M School of Law. So in the friendship and collaboration between the two schools, Texas A&M University School of Law and Jindal Global Law School, the gifted program, if I understand, is in the program in the form of a dual LLM. That means an LLM from Jindal Global Law School and an LLM from Texas A&M University School of Law. How this will work in actual practice?
Thank you, Srijit, for the question. First of all, I want to thank Raj, who's been a dear friend for several years, and I've seen the rise of Jindal Global Law School over the years, and much of this is an outcome of conversations we have had about creating a program that's unique to the Jindal Global Law School and Texas A&M. So the way we envisage this, and of course I have to thank Dean Bobby RDA as well for his support and for encouraging us to do the program. So the way we envisage this is students will finish one semester at Jindal. So during the one semester, they enroll for the LLM program at Jindal, and they'll finish a semester at Jindal Global Law School. And that's where we believe they'll acquire their basic skills in these specialized areas of law. And from there, they will move on to Texas A&M to complete the second semester of their LLM. So at the time they apply to do this program, they would inform Jindal Global that they are interested in spending half a semester at Jindal. And we will transfer the Jindal credits into Texas A&M when they, after their semester is over. We will transfer 12 of the credits and we'll calculate 12 of the credits and then transfer it into Texas A&M. And students who come to Texas A&M will finish 12 credits at Texas A&M and go back to New Delhi. Now, those 12 credits that they finish in Texas A&M translate into 16 of Jindal Global credits. So when students return, students would have accumulated from their first semester at Jindal Global as well as from their semester at Texas A&M 8 or more extra credits, and those will be applied towards the Jindal LLM, thus qualifying the student for 2 separate LLMs, one from Jindal Global and the other from Texas A&M. So that's how we envisage the program. The program gives the additional benefit. The fees are much lower, so the cost for the student is much lower. It allows the student to come and spend a semester with us in Texas A&M. So it allows us to interact with Jindal Global students, and of course Jindal students to know and to interact with Texas A&M and to network and create those opportunities. We look forward to having Jindal Global students in our campus. With that, is there anything else that we need to cover, David?
I also want to mention that for the Jindal LLM, I would say, Srijit, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a dissertation component as well, which will need to be completed so that they are qualified to receive the LLM degree.
Yes, so one of the 8 credits, 8 out of the 8 credits they will obtain in Jindal, the additional credits that will be, a part of that will be towards the dissertation program. Srividya, definitely, I mean, there will be questions at that point, you can speak more. So I get back to Professor Rajkumar again, that, I mean, as per this dual degree program, there is going to be a transition at some point. Of course, by the end of the fall semester, a transition will happen from Jindal Global Law School to Texas A&M University School of Law. How will you manage this transition? In another word, how do you plan to prepare the students spending their semester in Jindal to advance towards the Texas A&M School of Law? Even though both the schools have global ambition, how this transition will be managed?
Thank you so much, Srijit. So first of all, I think we should be very clear that there will be different types of students with different plans, aspirations, and goals. So those who want to pursue a LLM program at Jindal, they may be able to enroll into one of our specialized LLM programs, and they will spend the whole year studying at Jindal, graduating from Jindal, and doing that. But if you choose to do the dual degree program, you need to make the choice now. It is not something it's a very important decision you have to take, because it's not one of those exchange programs that you can decide in the course of your semester. The decision to be enrolled in a dual degree program has to be made now at the beginning itself, so that the entire curriculum, the course structuring, the credit system, and the transfer of credits, including examination and assessment, and all of that is carefully choreographed from day one. And that's a very important distinction between this program and sort of a study abroad type programs. Dual degree programs expect that choice to be made so that you are fully conscious of the various rules and regulations that will become applicable for you. And in this case, it's important that there will be a dual admissions process as well. Texas A&M University School of Law will admit the students on the basis of the qualifications, and the students who want to be part of the LLM program will fulfill whatever requirements that Jindal Global Law School will have. Just that the expectation is to have bright students who have the relevant competencies, and so once they fulfill these requirements, they should not have any difficulty in being enrolled in these programs. As far as the managing, so once this happens, then in the course of the semester, I think that's a question of logistics as well. We will remain in very close contact with our friends in Texas A&M as well. Our goal, and I think both Dean Adu as well as Srividya and others, we have all discussing to develop a joint academic committee between both the schools, where we are able to discuss and develop a progress report on the basis of the student life cycle that would have originated at Jindal and then ultimately will end at Texas A&M, so that it's not that the interaction or coordination happens after they land up in Texas A&M, but it happens much earlier. So there will be a joint academic committee which will be working closely. It has some assistant deans of academic affairs and their counterparts in Texas A&M, so that both the students and the faculty in both the institutions are fully geared up for having a smooth transition into Texas A&M School of Law.
Thank you, Sir Raj. Sure, Srividya, please.
Sorry, I just wanted one other point to be added there. If a student is unable to get visas, then they will go on to finish the second semester at Jindal and qualify for the regular.
And then we'll only pay for whatever the cost of the Jindal.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because as the students who are watching this, you should know that visas and other things are all obviously not dependent upon us. Most of the time one gets it, but if for any reason it's not there, then obviously one will have to, you still are okay because you will have your one LLM for which you would have enrolled for, you would have paid for.
Thank you. So I'll now move on to Assistant Dean David Day. So from what Professor Rajkumar spoke, it's quite clear that the students are going to get some kind of a foundation during their first semester studying in Jindal Global Law School. And by foundations, I mean some kind of foundations which are essential to start a specialization. Now, how do you plan to make use of these foundations? How would you orient the students to start a specialization in intellectual property rights or in oil and gas law in Texas A&M School of Law?
Well, thank you very much. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you for having us here today. And yours is a great question. So as you know, we're aware that Jindal students are a very high quality, high caliber student. The students coming into our program will have earned their first degree in law, and they'll have spent a semester with you already, as you said, working on the foundations. So one of the things that we do to help students pick the right path for them going forward is we have an academic advisor that works with each student. That academic advisor will look at their resume, at their CV, and see what they've done in the past, and they'll also work with them on what courses they've taken in the past, and then build on that going forward based on the goals that the student has outlined for their career. So this academic advisor will help work as a bridge for them to take them from where they have been to where they want to go. And so they'll work with them on the right coursework to specialize in intellectual property, if that is their goal, or if they're interested in energy and natural resources or energy and environmental law, they'll work with them on finding the right courses to match what foundational knowledge they have from their academic and work experience, and to take them to where they're trying to go in their career.
Thank you, Assistant Dean David Day. I now move to my final question here because we have to open the Q&A. And my final question is to Dean Ade. How this program in its totality will be advantageous to the students, particularly in terms of the education they receive in two premier educational institutions. We do have specific questions about what are the job prospects, but of course, I know that this program has so many other incentives beyond getting a job in the United States. So in what way this is going to be, in its totality, will be advantageous to the students?
Great. So Thanks for that. I'll be brief because we want to open it up to the student questions. I mentioned already the nature of A&M in terms of its very fast rising rank and increasing visibility. So let me not say more about that. I guess I'd mention three things that I would think about as opportunities. The first is a little bit of function of the specialties of the law school, of Texas A&M Law School. So we are among the top 10 law schools in the United States now in terms of intellectual property, technology, and innovation. So that's an area of strength. So if students have an interest in that area, we are particularly strong. We are also among the top 10, number 6 actually, in dispute resolution. So arbitration, commercial arbitration, mediation, negotiation, for students interested in that. We're also very strong in energy and environment. So a number of areas where there's real strength of the law school that the studying with us creates, I think, real opportunities in terms of your reputation and brand as a student, as a graduate. Second thing I would mention in terms of education is just the very strong focus we have on excellence in education. There are schools that are very strong on scholarship and schools that are very strong on teaching. We really think of ourselves as focused on and excelling on both counts. It is sometimes easy for one of those to fall by the wayside, but we are rather single-minded about making sure that we're not doing that we are sort of, singularly focused on ensuring that our graduates are receiving truly a 21st century education. So that would be the second thing I would mention, quality of education. And the last one I'd mention is, again, a little bit about Texas in particular. I mentioned A&M's fast growth. Texas as a state is the fastest growing state in the United States in terms of population, corporate headquarters, and the like. In particular, it has a strong connection to India. Two of the very largest expatriate communities of Indians in the world are in Houston, Texas, and Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, where we are. There are numerous Indian corporations whose U.S. headquarters are here in Texas. And Texas is one of the biggest trading partners with India. And so there really is a real synergy, I think, that we have with Texas A&M that I think is also an additional plus for students who enroll in the program. So those would be the things I guess I would flag.
Thank you, Dean Ede. I think we have provided a pretty good overview of the program. Now we have got a few interesting questions. Let's get into the most relevant ones. Probably Mr. Ananya Gupta would be the right person to answer the first question, which is about the eligibility criteria and the admissions process to the dual degree program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I think David would be the right person to answer this query, because he knows much more about it. But yes, I can tell you that the basic procedure which we are following for admissions at A&M Texas is the profile of the candidate is reviewed with respect to his respect to his resume and his CV, and then also reliance is plays on his SOP as well as the letter of recommendations. So these are one few of the factors through which an analysis is done. I think for a very specific answer, I would like to give it off to David to answer this query, so that we can have an absolute understanding of how do we do it.
Thank you, Ananya. I'm happy to jump in. So we have the requirements for the application are first the application itself. We have a very streamlined direct application that students can go to our website at law.tamu.edu/LLM, and they can apply directly to us if they would like. And if you're looking at just one law school because you're going through this pathway through the gifted program, I think this is the right path to take. If you're looking at law schools more generally, then there is another application process through a clearinghouse called Law School Admissions Council, lsac.org. We have an application through there as well. In addition to the application itself, we have a small application fee of $90 US. But any applicants coming through this process, we will waive that application fee for. So I'm just telling you about it so I can tell you that we're waiving it for you. In addition to the application and the fee, we will require official transcripts from any law school where you've completed, or excuse me, any university where you've completed a degree, and your work with JGLS, obviously, so we can evaluate it for transfer credit. We'll require a personal statement or statement of interest, a resume or CV, and finally, we prefer to have 2 letters of recommendation. Those can come from your faculty at JGLS. Those can come from your faculty where you earned your LLB, from coworkers or colleagues, professionals who you've worked for, things like that.
All right. Thank you. We have obviously a question about the nature of the Texas A&M University. Is it a private university or a public university? So they would just like to know a little bit about the university, the Texas A&M University at large.
Professor Raghavan, do you want me to say a few words and then you add, or do you want to go first?
Sure. Why don't you go first?
So Texas A&M University is a public university. It's one of two sort of flagship law schools of Texas. Texas is so big that we have more than one. As I mentioned, it's the largest university in the country. Across the entire university, we have 70,000 students. Particularly the university's strengths are in engineering, computer science, as well as agriculture, but growing areas of strength are in business and finance, in law, and in healthcare. And it is again, a comprehensive university. So big research program, but also big, teaching program as well. And again, partially because of what I told you about Texas, very sort of great resources in terms of devoting to quality student education. It's one of the reasons why we can make the degree more cost effective than many US law schools, even while providing excellence in faculty and so on and so forth. I don't know if that's responsive, or Professor Raghavan, you want to add to that?
Thank you, Bobby. Well, we are one of the largest universities in the United States, very diverse. The law school is very diverse in its approach, but very Texan in its governance. So that gives you an idea of what, how we, how you can get a sense of things that are done here. And as Nadia mentioned, we do have faculty from India. We have faculty who specialize in China. We have faculty who do Asian studies in intellectual property. We have faculty who specialize in arbitration, dispute resolution. So we have several specialties, and that makes the law school unique. It is located in one of the one of the most diverse cities in the United States, Dallas, Texas, which is a very high Indian population, as was mentioned earlier. So I do think there is a lot of synergies in terms of how Indian students would be, would feel comfortable in pursuing their higher education in Texas A&M. Thank you.
Thank you, Srividya. We have another very interesting question: that can these two LLMs be in two different specializations? So the first part of the question I can answer. In Jindal Global Law School, of course, you have to complete a certain amount of credits in order to get your LLM degree, or even to move to Texas. But of this, 12 credits exclusively will be made for the Texas A&M. In addition to the 12 credits, if the student is prepared to take the necessary specialization credits in Jindal, it is possible to have the Jindal LLM of a certain specialization. Now, once the student moves to Texas A&M, obviously my colleagues will answer this question, but we do have one common specialization, which is intellectual property rights. I would hand over to the microphone to you, Srividya, to answer the rest of the question.
That's a great question. And I think we will have to work through it, but I would like to enable two separate specializations. I mean, of course, if they come with a strong background in, say, trade law, in certain areas of IP laws, and then come to Texas A&M and decide to choose, say, more arbitration courses, we should be able to enable two separate specialization. Am I right in saying that, David?
Yeah, if a student focused on their 12 hours with us in one specialization and then focused on their subjects at another school in a different specialization, I think that we could fit the two curricula together. I think if they were to come to Texas A&M, they would probably have to focus the entire 12 credit hours that semester in order to meet the requirements for the specialization, for the second specialization. But as long as they did that, we could make it where they have two specializations.
And here in Jindal Global Law School, when one will be spending the first semester, 9 credits worth compulsory courses that a student will have to take. It is mandatory for getting the Jindal LLM as part of this dual degree. In addition to that 9, if the student is willing to make the essential specialization credits, obviously the student can make 2 different LLM programs. That's possible. We have another question about, is it possible for me to obtain an LLM in criminal law? Can one of these LLMs be in criminal law? I'm not sure about the Texas A&M whether there's an LLM in criminal law, but indeed, the Jindal Global Law School, one of the stream is a general LLM. And if the elective courses taken in the Jindal Global Law School can be tailored to suit the needs of a criminal law specialization, indeed, it's possible to make that a criminal law LLM, but that would still be called a general LLM, not really an LLM in criminal law. Over to you, Srividya.
So the question is whether they can get an LLM in criminal law from Texas.
Criminal law, yes.
From Texas A&M, okay. I mean, my sense is, if you're coming all the way to Texas A&M, I would rather that you think of an LLM in intellectual property, dispute resolution, arbitration, and so on and so forth. The student will benefit much more from, say, energy law, some of our specializations. Whether they can take criminal law courses from the United States, of course they can, they can take criminal law courses from the United States. But given that some of them, I assume, would go back to India, I don't know if the student will actually benefit from, getting a criminal law specialization from, from Texas A&M. Right. But if we see a huge interest in criminal law specialization, I'm pretty sure that we'll enable some of that as well. But at this point, if I have to advise a student, I'll basically tell the student to consider some of these more specialized areas of law.
I just want to add a point on this specialization thing. So as somebody who has studied at a US law school, did my LLM there are two types of ways to look at it for the students who are watching this. There are law schools in the US which has different types of thematic specialization based LLMs. Then there are schools which doesn't have that type, but you end up choosing courses to specialize whatever you want to. So for example, I did my LLM at Harvard Law School. Harvard does not have a bracketed LLM like NYU, which has several streams of LLM. You could do LLM in trade or investment or IP or corporate or commercial or whatever. But then even though Harvard didn't have a specialized LLM program, I ended up taking all but one course in human rights. So I specialized in human rights, but my LLM is just the Master of Laws. So I believe that's a better model for the students that look at Texas, because you choose your courses, and I'm sure the Texas A&M will enable you to pick and choose courses, and that which one you want to specialize with, what type of emphasis that you want to give, you are the master of it, and that gives you greater flexibility. Because even if you want to specialize, let's say in criminal law, you might want to have courses in other areas as well. It may not make sense for you to, it's still a much more narrow area for you to, so you might end up combining a course on, in public international law or issues surrounding human rights or trial advocacy or whatever. So the range and the breadth of courses that Texas A&M can provide to you will ultimately enable you to have a more, let's say, holistic approach towards your LLM program, which can also culminate in you specializing in key areas with some courses. I have, my wife had done, she also did the LLM program at Harvard, and she ended up taking a fair amount of courses on corporate law and corporate governance and things like that. But she also did a course on human rights and feminist legal theory and private law theory. So in a way, given the fact that you are going to pursue a rigorous master's degree program, it might actually make sense to have that flexibility to pick and choose from a range of courses rather than being more tied up to a very selective, smaller group of courses.
If I can
I just echo, sorry, David, I actually agree with Raj quite a bit here. And that was my experience both with my LLM and my as well. In a lot of ways, doing some of these diverse courses allows the student to appreciate, how they'd want to specialize and how they would like to, further take their career down the road. So absolutely, getting into more than one specialized courses instead of following a specialized LLM has its specific benefits for sure. Sorry, David?
Yeah, so I wanted to be clear here. We actually follow that same, Chancellor Kumar, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's actually the path that we follow as well. We have one specialized degree. What I was referring to, and I think what Srividya and I were both referring to, is that we do have curricular tracks within that degree that students can participate in. And if they complete 12 credit hours, which is the full amount they would be taking with us, they can earn a certificate as well. I do think there is more importance, to echo Chancellor Kumar, more importance in getting the right courses than in getting the certificate of completion, right? So if your goal is to meet a certain end, I would love the flexibility to work with you on getting the courses you need to prepare you for that, more than making sure you have a certificate of completion in X or in Y.
Thank you all. That's a great perspective, actually, that general LLM is the right means to satisfy one's intellectual urges. We have a very practical question. What is the fee structure of this program?
I think that one's for me. So we have a 24 credit hour LLM program that students would traditionally, so not through this special arrangement, they would come to the US, they would study for 2 semesters, to what we call full-time semesters, meaning they had a full course load. Traditionally, maybe they would start in August then and complete in May. So at about 9 months, they would complete the degree. What we're doing here, and that program runs about $36,400, and that's a substantial amount less than the average LLM in the U.S. Most LLMs in the U.S. are between 50 and 60. So as a public school, as a top tier public school, we're able to offer this program already at a substantially discounted price compared to a lot of our peers. With the arrangement we have come to with Jindal University, when we transfer in half of the credits for the degree, we automatically are able to reduce the cost by half. So students take that $36,000 and $36,000 US dollars, and it automatically goes down to 18. What we have also done in this arrangement is added in a $1,000 scholarship that many of the students will receive. Everyone will be eligible to apply for it, and most will receive this additional $1,000 off, making this about a $17,000 US dollar degree as compared to, as I said, 50, 60,000 for many of our peers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Srijit. I just want to add something here with reference to the application process. When Ananya and David were talking, I wanted to add this year, especially, I want to highlight that our graduate admissions office has worked with every LLM applicant, right, to traverse through their application process, their personal statements, their SOPs, to help the student create, to project themselves in a light that is, that highlights all of the good things they've done over a period of time. So, right. And so I know the question was really on cost, but really in some ways the applications and how the application processes are dealt with also helps the student to get the scholarship and to do well to get into Texas A&M. Thank you.
So I'll just add to it that the total cost, the tuition fee of the program will be $24,000, of which 25% of the tuition fee will be paid to Jindal Global Law School during the first leg. And when the student moves to Texas A&M School of Law, the rest of the fee will be paid to Texas A&M University School of Law. So we have another question about the job prospects of this course. Is it possible for me to get a job in the United States after completing this LLM?
So possible, yes. I want to be clear that the largest factors for a student getting a job in the U.S. will be their ability to get legal status to work in the U.S., which is not something that the law school has control over, right? So that part, we're obviously there to help advise or whatever, but the student will have to obtain the legal authority to work in the U.S. Now, there is an opportunity called OPT that allows a student to remain in the US for 1 year. In order to qualify for OPT, though, a student would need to come to the US for 2 full-time semesters. So if a student wanted to look at an opportunity to come to Texas A&M for 2 full-time semesters, we've actually come to an arrangement with Jindal where we would discount that student based on the quality of the application that we know we're going to receive. On average, those students would probably pay about $20,000 rather than the 17 to 18 to Texas A&M. I want to be clear, you're right. The 17 to 18 to Texas A&M, they could pay $20,000 for the entirety of the degree, qualify for OPT, and that would give them the legal authority to stay and work in the US in the field of law for up to 1 year. Some other things that we'll be doing to assist students, we have come to an agreement with our law center our
Career Center.
Thank you. Career Center here at the law school and at the university to offer assistance to students. So we'll make sure that we have the ability to assist them with their soft skills, making sure that they have a resume that fits the needs of the legal employers here in the US, rather than the traditional CV that you would see from another country. We use maybe a little bit different style, and they would help them reformat that, help them with interviewing skills, help them with writing a letter to introduce themselves to the employers, and give them access to job boards that might show them employers that are interested in students like themselves.
I want to add something to this question about the jobs. I think one of the most important things for students who intend to pursue such a program opportunity is not so much to think in terms of getting a job in the United States. I would say that the first and foremost goal and objective of pursuing such a program should be to be able to have a sort of a transnational jurisdictional knowledge about law, about and even more sometimes international jurisdictions. So that's a very important element. Second is that you are positioning yourself to be a global lawyer, and that does not mean that it needs to be confined to be working in the United States. We've had our own graduates having done degrees here and the US ended up working in Singapore and Hong Kong and maybe in Dubai and of course in India as well. So increasingly in a transnational jurisdictional context, the knowledge of law of more than one jurisdiction should help you to navigate across different settings. The second, the third important aspect of this program is that it also should be seen from the standpoint of how you can enable yourself to be better suited to get good jobs in India as well. For example, there are US-based companies and corporations which are having presence in India. There are Indian law firms which are, providing services for major US global corporations. Imagine a student who has knowledge about both Indian law and knowledge of US law or even comparative law. Those type of people will be sought after potentially by Indian corporations with US or international presence, US corporations with India or international presence in their in-house legal team. They could be of interest to law firms to be able to serve as lawyers for these clients who are also transnational. So in some ways, it's important for you to remember this particular element. And having said that, I will also say that the US situation right now in terms of jobs and all those things, your primary goal should not be with the objective of getting a job in the United States. I would say that's not the way to look at it, but you might get a job, who knows? By the time those of you are thinking about this program now and graduating in 2021, the world will be a much better place. I will say, I will bet on the graduates of 2021 than the 2020. So you have a greater chance next year in that sense. But think this kind of a program, not just here. When I graduated from Harvard Law School and my friends from so many other places, many of them did not get a job in the United States. And some of us did get. And that doesn't mean anything from the standpoint of your own competencies. It's just that there are so many factors that will ultimately, lead to, it almost has a bearing on who becomes the next president of the United States. So many things matter ultimately in shaping these type of things. But the fundamental things about why you should do a program of this kind doesn't change, and why the value addedness of having a dual degree program, one from India and the United States, doesn't change. And the curriculum and the course structure and the program outline and the credit transfers, those things don't change. And of course, significantly reduce cost and reduce time to get 2 degrees, which will enable you to do a lot more things that you would have ever thought of.
May I jump in with?
David first.
Keep just barely. Well, it's very short. It's a slightly related offshoot, but it is applicable generally. The primary reason that foreign educated students are denied a visa coming into the U.S. is for showing what we call immigrant intent. And so if you go into your immigration interview through the consular office and tell them that your primary objective is to obtain employment in the U.S., they are highly likely to deny your visa. So please keep that in mind when you're looking at, coming to the U.S. to study. If you're showing immigrant intent, then they are more likely to deny your visa.
Thank you. I want to add something to the perspective that Raj gave, which is that I graduated from the National Law School. I was the second batch at the National Law School. When we graduated, a lot, the thinking was we should all pack our 2-bit suitcases, go to another country, set up roots, and show how well we did or the strength of our education, right? When I look back, turns out the trick is, yes, you go out. The trick is to find out the right time to go back to India, right? And Raj is the expert in that. He, right? I cannot highlight, how well Raj packed back his 2-bit suitcases and went back to India and thrived well. So, so to assume somehow that getting a job in the United States is the end all is really not true. I can tell you of a number of law graduates, both from national law schools as well as from outside. Gokila, who runs one of the biggest law firms in Dubai, is a graduate from India, and a Symbiosis graduate who went to the United States, did her education, started in Dubai, and does very well. Number of national law school students in every city with great LLMs to their credit, and then they go back and they're having wonderful careers. Raj, another great example. So the way we, weave our careers is really up to us. And globalization has thankfully made, where we live, that jurisdiction is not an important aspect to consider. So I have to absolutely echo Raj's sentiments in saying that your entire objective should be to gain knowledge and to become more global and transnational in your approach, and a great career will follow with that.
Thank you, Srividya. I strongly encourage the participants to pose more questions. The panelists are all here for you. But we have got a very interesting question which actually might prompt many of you to think about the possibilities of transnational. The question is this: if not for a job, in what way knowledge of the law of another jurisdiction is going to help me?
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, this is a question that always comes up to us as well. Well, I think first of all, none of us say that these things are not useful for a job. What we have emphasized is that the goal for pursuing such a program should not be job, but the knowledge and the expertise and the skills and the experience that one acquires through this experience will be significantly useful in any job setting. But having said that, I think you raised a very, very important question about why you should think about this. Well, I'll tell you what. We are increasingly living in an interdependent world, but more importantly, a globalized world. Gone are the days when some of these issues that we thought were purely domestic remain domestic. There are huge implications in the field of corporate law, financial law, trade law, investment law, IP, data protection, data analytics, privacy, you name it. You just pick up any area of law. It has huge implications of the world at large. Companies and corporations, as you know, both Indian or US or multinational, are not only confined to a single jurisdiction. They are seamlessly working across different jurisdictions. So the question then is, if you are a company or a corporation which is global in its operations, which has operations in both countries and more, and you are looking at legal issues that will confront within those two countries or a third country or other regimes, or if you're looking at ADR type issues, including international commercial arbitration with Singapore or Hong Kong or CTAC or wherever, the knowledge becomes so critical for you to be able to even deal with domestic issues. So you might be pretty much be working in a corporate law firm in India, but the fact that you have got that knowledge to look at issues from a multi-jurisdictional perspective enormously improves your own abilities to navigate your career opportunities and your standing within the firm or organization that you're working. That makes unique for you, because there are people, your own peer group, who might have studied in a particular jurisdiction, but their knowledge and expertise will end up becoming much more limited. So it's not so much for using the LLM to get a job, but to that job that is in the US or elsewhere, but to actually leverage your knowledge and perspectives and skills in a far more significant manner in the jobs and the responsibilities that you might have, even in the context of working in an Indian law firm. The other thing which I think is extraordinary is that there is a new generation of lawyers who are not only keen to work for their good part of their life in existing law firms, they want to create their own firms. The biggest startup that India is going to see, and is already beginning to see, is that new generation of corporate lawyers in particular, and also other lawyers in public law too, are going to really create their own firms. Legal entrepreneurship in law firm structuring is going to democratize the legal profession in unimaginable ways. You have a situation where even a newer law school like us, just the beginning of the academic year, when we welcome all the students, last year I asked the same question: how many of the students coming in were first generation lawyers? I was stunned to see that over 75% of the students who are coming in are first generation lawyers. When I went to law school 25 years ago, that was not the case. It would be right opposite. Over 60 to 70% of them would have had direct family background in the field of law. So this extraordinary transition, a transformation that has happened to both legal education, which is impacting legal profession, is also going to impact the world of corporate legal profession. And that is why the future will depend upon people who are entrepreneurial, who are global, who are transnational, who can comfortably work across different jurisdictions, who understand the law and practice of multi-jurisdictional and have training in those places. For example, one of the things I would encourage you to do is that if you can also take up the bar examination in the US, depending upon the jurisdiction. And if you can do that, that would be an additional value. Not that you will practice the US, but that becomes a credential for you to have, and all of that matters. So in some ways, the point about having this additional qualification in the form of an LLM from US is not so much about the more myopic and immediacy of getting a job in the US, but its ability to have a long-term significant impact on your future, life and career.
Can I just add very briefly, tack on to that? I fully agree with everything Chancellor Kumar mentioned. I was for years a professor of comparative law. And oftentimes we get the question, why should a student study comparative law? Again, this is akin to global law, international law, getting a foreign degree. And what I would tell them is so that you can practice the law of your jurisdiction better. Because it turns out that if I understand Indian contract law, I understand US contract law better as well. Because in addition to having studied US law in isolation, I now have an external point of reference to which I can compare the US rule and therefore be a better advocate of its limitations, of its nuances, so on and so forth. It's the same reason why we also study legal history. Why do we look at precedent? Why do we read cases that are no longer valid law? Because they enable us to understand the current law that much better. So what I would tell you is that, and this is why the mission of Jindal Global Law School is so significant, the lawyers 10 years from now who are the most successful leaders and impactful members of our profession and our bench and academia will be those who have been trained in that global perspective, those who are able to engage the law not only as it exists narrowly in their jurisdiction, but that it existed historically, as it exists comparatively, and frankly, as it exists globally. So, so that would be the only piece I would add.
Thank you, Dean Ede. So we have actually come to the end of this session. So I really thank all the participants and also all the viewers through YouTube. The recordings of this session will be available for you to watch later on. And if you do have any questions, please write to the admissions offices of the respective universities for getting further details.
Digit, I want to add a last note about this. One of the things I've realized having studied in the US also is that it matters a lot to go to a law school which has a sort of a friendly and welcoming environment. And I place a lot of emphasis on that because most of the time as an international student, you feel a bit lost, and in many ways, it's important for you to have a good grounding. Because of the fact that we have, as in we means Jindal Global Law School, and us as many of our faculty members have very deep and pervasive relationship, friendship, and partnership with the Texas A&M University School of Law, the opportunity to have a very smooth transition, but also to be having a very welcoming and hospitable environment will make the entire experience of studying in the US far more, I would say, inspiring and engaging, and indeed, it'll be a much more pleasant experience. I mean, I know a lot of international students, including students from India, they may end up going to good schools, and obviously Texas A&M is one of the other good schools as well. But if the environment is not so welcoming, particularly with the kind of friendships and relationships that we have, I believe that that will make a huge difference to the quality of experience that you might end up having. If you're going to spend 4 years of your undergraduation, even if 1 year is not good, you can figure it out in the next 3 years. LLM programs, master's programs, graduate programs are short in duration, and every day matters. And so for that reason as well, I will give a strong thumbs up to the Texas A&M University School of Law, and would say that this particular partnership will enormously and quite immensely benefit the students who enrolled in the program through this dual degree, framework.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much.
you.
So thank you all the speakers. So we'll keep this in the YouTube available for people to come back and watch. And please do contact us if you have any questions about the dual degree through the gifted program.
Thank you very much, Srijit. And thank you, Ananya and Srividya and Bob and David. Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Raj, thanks a lot,
Bye-bye.
Srijit. Thank you for working with me. And I appreciate all of your support and help, all of you in the speakers. And hopefully the program will thrive. I look forward to seeing your students in my class.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.